Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Peter and this will be the 8th article in a series on the swimming rules, and this one's about backstroke turns. But before we get started, another question for you to think about. Have a think about where technical officials come from. There'll be some thoughts on that next article. Now to those backstroke turns. Now the old backstroke turn is still legal. You can touch the wall with your arm while you're still face up, spin around, face the wall, push off, face up, the same as for a backstroke start. That is still legal. The coach won't want you to do it, but it is still legal from a technical point of view. Now forward tumble turns have been allowed in backstroke for a couple of decades now. But there are a lot of rules associated with them, so you have to be very, very careful. You have to know what you're doing. Now, another thing to point out right at the start about these is that there is one special rule for medley swimming which says that each stroke has to be finished with the finish touch for that stroke, which means that at the end of the backstroke section you have to touch the wall with your arm, head or shoulder while you are still face up. So don't think that you can do a backstroke forward tumble turn transitioning from backstroke to breaststroke. You'll very most likely be disqualified for that. Now I'm going to be swapping between officiating and coaching here and I'll swap to coaching just now. You see, you'll be swimming along watching for the flags, and you might see the flags as your right arm is up, or your left arm might be up as you're going under the flags. So you have to be able to do these turns equally well from both sides. The other thing is that to get your distance right, you need to count both arms. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you only count 1, 2 to your good arm, the chances are you're going to be either too close to the wall or too far out when you have to do your turn. You go a long way in a full stroke and that's going to mess up your turn. You're either going to be too close to the wall or too far out, very often. So count both arms and you have to be able to do these tumble turns equally well, starting from either side. Now, there are different varieties of these that are allowed, but basically just at this stage I'll say that if your stroke finishes with your right arm entering the water, rotate to the right side. If your count finishes with your left arm entering the water, rotate to the left side. Not all swimmers will be doing that, as we'll see shortly. If you can only rotate to one side, then you're either going to be too far out or too close, very often, or what's going to happen is, if you can only rotate to the right, for example, and you go that way, that's okay. But if your count finishes with your left arm and you can only rotate to the right, you're going to end up doing a shoddy turn one way or the other. So you need to be able to do these equally well from both sides. Don't think that you can only rely on doing it to one side. You're going to mess it up. Now with the white hat back on. If you roll over too far out, then you've got a problem. You're no longer doing backstroke, you're doing freestyle. The only thing you're allowed to do is a forward tumble turn. You cannot try to fix it up by turning back face up. It means that sometime during the race you went face down, you are no longer doing backstroke, you're already disqualified. So you can't fix it up if you turn over too far out. You've just got to get your stroke count right. The only thing you're allowed to do is a tumble turn. As part of the turn, and this is what the rules say, you can use one single arm or one double arm pull to assist you to do the turn while you are face down. During that stroke, you are allowed to continue to kick, but once you run out of pull, you must stop kicking and tumble promptly. You can't even glide in. The rule always said a continuous turning action, which means that you can't pause at any time. So after you've run out of stroke and kick, the only thing you're allowed to do is to do your forward tumble turn. You can't glide in, you'll get disqualified for it. You can do a single downward butterfly kick to help you to tumble. That's allowed as long as it's all continuous. That's just all part of the tumbling action. Now, one common cause of disqualification is taking more than one stroke face down. Don't think that you can just flip over any time and take as many strokes as you need to get close enough to the wall. You've got one stroke to help you to do the turn. Now, I'll tell you how a lot of swimmers get into trouble with this. Officials all have their own ways of checking whether a swimmer has taken an extra arm stroke face down, and for me, I'm not real quick and not real observant, so I have to rely on tricks. If I see a swimmer's elbow come up out of the water while they're face down, I can be fairly sure that they're just about to take a second pull face down. You can bring your arm forward, the rule doesn't say you can't do that, but you can't use any more than one pull face down. Now, another cause of disqualification that you see in novices, I'll leave this on, is pushing off face down after the turn. Now obviously you've got to be face up, leaving the wall if you do it in a backstroke race, but the forward tumble turn is the same as for a freestyle forward tumble turn, and the little minds have already practiced so much of that they'll just automatically rotate over face down, going away from the wall. You've got to remember to stay face up after you've done your tumble. It's actually easier, but just due to habit, they very often turn face down. Another cause of this can be a bad habit that some swimmers get into in training, and this is especially the older swimmers, pushing off face down and then turning face up if they're going to do backstroke in training. Never ever do it. Always practice in training what you're going to do in a race, and you'll trap yourself if you're so used to just pushing off face down and turning lazily face up to do a backstroke length. You're going to tend to automatically do that in a race, and that will be disqualifiable. Now, coaches have different opinions about what the best style of backstroke forward tumble turn is, and the rule is written very simply. It just says you have one single arm or one double arm pull to assist you to do the tumble. Now, entry-level coaching manuals very often say that the arm crosses over to help you to rotate. If you do that, that's the one arm that you have to pull with. That's the only option you have. There are no other varieties of it that can help you adjust your distance. Once you've done that and gone face down, you cannot bring another arm forward. You cannot use the second arm while you're face down. You've only got the one, that arm that you crossed over with is the only one that you've got to help you to do your turn. Now I'll mention the double arm variety, and now you need to be able to do this equally well from both sides too. Whichever side your count finishes on, stick the arm to that ear as you're rotating over, and your second arm comes around to join it. Now you're ready to do a great big double arm butterfly pull to help you to do your turn. I'll mention now about the big double arm sweep. One of the things that many swimmers don't seem to take advantage of, especially in races and only sometimes in training, is the use of the arms during a tumble turn. We were taught this very early on, and it was considered to be a good quality technique, and even the advanced swimmers were using it. Just say, for example, a freestyle turn, and it's going to be the same for a backstroke forward tumble turn, is as you're coming up to the wall, when you're one stroke out from the wall, hold that arm by your side until the other one comes alongside it and you are trailing both arms. Then you can do a big reverse sweep with both arms, holding your hands flat. A big reverse sweep which will help you to rotate over. And that's why when I was saying in the backstroke turns, if you can arrange to end up trailing both arms, you can use this big reverse sweep with both arms to help you to flip forwards. Nearly all the swimmers I see learn to do a freestyle tumble turn following the arm around. To me, that was a good way to end up on the bottom of the pool. I don't know, they seem to be able to make it work. You hardly ever see anyone using a reverse sweep, but it's one of the things that can give you a big advantage and can help you to have your whole four options in that rotating outwards version of backstroke forward tumble turn I was describing. You see, it's a bit strange. You tell swimmers as you're going into your turn, trail both arms and then do a reverse sweep to help you to do your tumble turn. If they only thought back to when they were 5 or 6 years old, they used to get in the water and they'd tuck their knees up to their chest and they'd swing their arms around like this, and they'd tumble over and over and over, and it was fun. Now you tell them to trail both arms and do a reverse sweep to help them to do a tumble, they go, They've forgotten when they were 6 years old they used to do it for fun. So that's two varieties, the crossover and the double arm, but you have to be able to do equally well from both sides. There's another variety, and this is the one that gives you the most options, but it may be the most difficult to learn all the options. That is, if your stroke finishes on the right side, rotate to the right. Keep your arms going opposite each other. Likewise, if your stroke finishes on the left, rotate to the left, keep the arms going opposite each other. And then, as you're going over, you'll get a look at the wall. And this is where the four different varieties come from. If you're really close to the wall, it's right there. You can rotate on that arm. You can tumble on that arm immediately. If it's a bit further out, and what you do is you'll tumble on that arm. The second arm, which was coming over opposite it, just drop it back down by your side. I'll mention why shortly. If you're a bit further out from the wall, you can pull all the way through. but still drop the other one down by your side. You are trailing both arms at this stage, and that's where you do your big double arm sweep to help you to tumble. Double arm reverse sweep. So that's two. Here's a third one. You see, you're only stopped doing backstroke once you've turned over more than 90 degrees. So this arm doesn't count. The officials aren't watching that one. They're watching this one, which is coming over through the air. That's the one arm that you've got to pull with. So you get the rest of this one for free. Okay, third variety. You rotate over, keep the arms going opposite to each other. The wall's a fair way away. You pull right through with this one. You can tumble on that one. That's the third variety. Fourth variety. This one's the best if you can master it. This is what will allow you to turn over the furthest away from the wall. Rotating over, pull all the way through, keep your arms going opposite each other, pull all the way through at the second one, and now you're trailing both arms and you do your big reverse sweep to help you to do your tumble. 4 different varieties. You need to be able to do them both sides. There is a world of difference between crossing over and rotating outwards. Crossing over gives you one option each side. Rotating outwards gives you 4 options each side. But you do have to practice all of them if you want to be able to make use of them. Like I said, the entry-level manuals will tell you to cross over. When I tried to talk to the local coach a few years ago about this, and they were crossing over, I thought, where do they get that from? And when I read the manual, there it is, that's what it says to do. I said, look, there should be rotating outwards. And I got into a stand-up argument on pool deck, and that didn't end very satisfactorily. So I thought, well, I wondered whether the confusion could have been due to what we call frame of reference. Point of view in common lingo, which just simply means that the same things can look different depending on where you are watching from. And it's something that confounds students of serious subjects the world over. And I realised that the coaching manuals are written by coaches. And what the coaches see from the side of the pool can be different from what the swimmers see. I wondered whether this could explain it. You see, here's the midline of a swimmer, and here's the arm that they're going to rotate over on. They start here, the arm's here. As it comes over and they're rotating over, ends up there. At no time during that operation does the arm cross the swimmer's midline. But the coach, watching from the side, has seen the arm cross from back over there to the opposite side of the lane. I wondered whether that could explain it, but I'm doubtful, because the manual says, and I quote, "As the swimmer approaches the wall, a turn begins with the recovery arm crossing over the midline of the body with elbow bent so that the hand reaches past the opposite shoulder." It's not easy to misinterpret that, is it? So I imagine that that's what was intended to be done initially. So what the origin of the idea of rotating outwards is still lost on me. I can't work out where it came from. what I can say is that I am seeing it being allowed right up to regional level here. If you have any doubts about it, I suggest you run all this by one of the technical officials in your local area. I've tried to look for coaching videos and examples of recordings of world championships and things like this, and unfortunately the recordings are done for entertainment, they're not done for coaching instruction. And so what is exactly happening close up at pool surface level as a backstroker goes into their turn is not distinct enough for me to be able to say with any certainty exactly what they're doing. Where did I get this idea from? And I still really don't know for sure. But I remember going back more than a decade, if I went to the regional championships, nearly all the backstrokers at that time who were doing 100-metre events, I remember I would see they'd keep their arms going opposite each other, they'd rotate outwards, keep their arms going opposite each other. Halfway over, they'd have one arm pointing at the bottom of the pool, one arm pointing at the sky. I would either see their face or the back of their head, and that's what they were like going over. So I know that they were doing that then. I know that the local coach 10, 15 years ago was, I'm pretty sure, was teaching that, because that's what I was teaching. So where this crossover stuff, so this is the entry level thing. You can do this, it'll tell you to cross over. I wanted to find some kind of a reference that would prove the point that this is what you're supposed to do. That's a bit better quality of rotating outwards, and eventually, I can't find it in any literature. I just gave up. I did eventually find it in a YouTube video done by Ryan Lochte about backstroke turns, and that's what he does. He rotates outwards. I tried to find that again and could not, although there are some other videos available about the same subject, although I could not find one that I could point to that shows distinctly what the arms are doing at that stage. So there we have it. How many does that add up to? 2 crossovers, 4 each side, rotating outwards, and 2 double arm. 2 and 8's 10 and 2 is 12. If you're serious about the number of options that you would like to be able to do in backstroke forward tumble turns, take your pick. I can count up 12 of them. Whichever style you do, you might have to do practice 2 crossovers, the 2 double arm ones, or the 4 each side, which will give you the best options in terms of distance. Ironically, novices need to have the most options they can, but they'll be least able to practice so many different options. So unfortunately, as you get better at it, you don't need so many options, and so I would recommend that if you're really well coordinated, the double arm one's a really good turn to do. And next to that, when you get your stroke count right, rotate outwards and work it out so that you can use both arms. Both arms. Now, always count from the flags. Always count from the flags. Some pools that you go to can have such low walls that if you look for the wall like you think you can always do it in your home pool, you might not have anything to look for. You won't see the wall if it's too low. So always count from the flags. Make sure you can always do that. how to teach your squad to do these. At first, don't worry about the wall. Get out in some water that you can stand up in. Just do a couple of strokes and then practice your turn out in open water. You won't have anything to kick against, but you can practice your turns without also having to think about where the wall is. Once you can do your turns without water going up your nose and coming out of it the wrong direction and all these things, then you can start to get your distance from the flags to the walls and fine-tune the number of strokes you do. Another thing that the novices don't, or any of them seem to understand, is that to get your stroke count right in practice, to determine what your stroke count is, you need to be going at race pace as you go underneath the flags. And I don't know why it is, but the novices seem to think that all you have to do is stand there underneath the flags and take off from there and count your strokes. You'll get it wrong. They don't understand why you hunt them out outside the flags and get them to be going at speed as they go underneath the flags. They just don't seem to be able to understand why they have to do that. You just have to keep doing it. But if you let them just stand underneath the flags and start from there, they'll get their count wrong in a race. Well, I was searching through video recordings about this just yesterday. I very fortunately came across something which suggested you can go about this a different way, which avoids all the problems. What you can do is get them to start 10 or 15 metres out from the wall, and initially rotate over. Immediately they see the flags. Of course the feet won't go anywhere near the wall. Get them to do it again, add one stroke. Under the flags, one stroke, rotate. Keep adding one stroke until the feet hit the wall. Why didn't we think of that before? I reckon that might be worth a go. You can fine tune it from there. Now if you think you only do 50 metre swims, you might think that you don't have to learn these yet. Well, I can tell you that it takes at least half a season practicing regularly to learn to get these right. I used trying to do this in a training session halfway through the week before you have to go and do a turn in a race somewhere on the weekend. So who would have thought that it would take half an hour to explain the implications of what looks like a fairly simple backstroke turn rule, but there it is. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.